G'day. Okay, what I want to discuss in this video is what are spheres of white light? Spheres of white light that a lot of people have seen. I've seen them. What are spheres of white light? Okay, so some people have said there might be probes. Okay, unmanned probes from extraterrestrials, I suppose. I can only tell you what I have experienced with those spheres of white light. When I saw them, at the time I was going through a massive relearning, re-education process of understanding geometrical thought harmonics, the language of mind, and pardon me, it was very complex. But while I was going through that process, I was receiving a lot of information. I was creating mandalas, creating geometric structures, wire structures, cardboard structures, all sorts of things that I was creating at the time. I was into sound therapy, so I was creating frequencies with specific phi ratio generators to influence the chemicals in the brain. Not just that, but yeah, so I was going through while I was awake, I was creating mandalas. Then when I'd finish the mandala, I'd focus on it and I'd go into a state of bliss. Actually, it was like I was being downloaded. Those mandalas seemed to access information, and it was like a download. But during the download process, I was in a state of bliss, writing information, pages and pages, thousands of pages of information on all different topics. So it was an intense learning process that I was going through. And at the time, I wasn't quite sure where this stuff was coming from, actually. When I first began, I believed in a God, and I thought, oh, it's coming from God. As I became more aware, had more information, I realised, I thought, no, I don't believe in gods. It doesn't make any sense. It's just a belief, and a belief is just a declaration of personal preference. We choose to accept something as true without proof or evidence. We just choose to accept it as true. I didn't want to go down that track. I wanted more than just what our belief systems have created through our superstitious nature and the nature to worship anything that seemed to have had more ability than us. Supernatural. We revere anyone who seems to be able to do something better than us, or all that sort of stuff. So of a daytime I was going through that process, and of a night time when I went to sleep, it was again going through that learning process. All of my dreams were like a classroom, a learning process, understanding the mind, understanding us, the creations of our mind. And I used to get frustrated with that stuff, spit the dummy, jump up and down, because at the time I had a lot of trouble trying to understand this stuff. It was something that I hadn't learnt from anywhere, at school, from anywhere actually. Even people who were into sacred geometry, what I was learning didn't seem to match what they were learning about sacred geometry, because geometry is just geometry. They call it sacred because they realised that it was the way everything was created using geometry. So anyone who was a believer in a supernatural entity, a god, a supreme being, they thought, oh, it's sacred. It's just geometry. But like I said, I was going through a whole lot of stuff, getting back to the experience of the spheres of white light, leading up to that. So one night I spat the dummy. I've had enough of this. All day, all night, 24 hours a day. And the mind was just, like I said, I was in bliss while I was getting information. But understanding that information after I got it, I had nothing to compare it with. Because I had, at the time, I was more or less dissolving most of my belief systems. Because I thought, well, you know, if I want to know the truth, I don't think I'm going to find it through all those superstitious beliefs. I need to have something to back up my truth. So I spat the dummy and I thought, I don't know where this stuff's coming from, but I've had a gutful. I need some sort of proof that I'm getting something that isn't going to deceive anybody, from the right source. I want to make sure the information was coming from the right source, where I was accessing it from, because that's what I was doing. I was accessing memory. So I want to know, whether it was the right information that I was receiving to get to a better point of understanding of what we are. Because that was the initial question. How did everything come about the way it is? That's what I wanted to know. Why is everything the way it is? I just wanted to know that. That's where I went down that path of geometry, understanding the language of thought. So, like I said, one night, I spat the dummy, dropped the books, I had a gutful. So I thought, I'll go over to the shopping centre because the supermarket used to be open until midnight at that time. And I'm not quite sure what time it was, maybe 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. Obviously it's dark. So I went outside. We had a very steep drive, place on the waterfront. So you had to walk up a fairly steep drive to get to the road, on a bit of a hill. Then I'd go downhill to the supermarket. So I got up to the top of the driveway, up to the footpath, crossed the road on the other side, looked over the shopping centre, and this white light was above the shops, above the shopping centre. And then I realised it was moving towards me, a sphere of white light. And it wasn't moving that fast, but I suppose fast enough. Came across the top of the shopping centre. It might have been only about 40 feet above the ground, actually. It wasn't very high. It was about a couple of metres in diameter. And then it came towards me and then went over my head. It's this white light. No noise. There was no rush of air when it went over. There was nothing. It was just silent. Still and silent. So, good grief. Because I'd said, I've had a gutful of this. I need to see or to see something, some sort of a sign, to see something that will reinforce that I'm getting this stuff from somewhere, or wherever, whatever, or if someone was guiding me in getting this stuff. So I said, I need evidence. Show yourself. Because I can be pretty stubborn at times, like I said. Obviously, pardon me, whoever was guiding me thought, oh, he's given up, or he's going to give up unless he gets proof. I'm just surmising, because this sphere of white light appeared. It went over my head. I was only about 40 foot above my head, above the ground. And when it went over my head, I looked behind me and it wasn't there. It just disappeared. I could only see it when it was coming at me. But when it went over my head and I looked, there was nothing. Then I turned around, faced the shopping centre, and another one came from exactly the same place above the shopping centre. Again, came towards me and went over my head. But a voice in my head said, "Don't doubt." In my experience with all beings that I've connected with, they connected telepathically. And when they connected with you, you were more or less in this semi sort of dream state, a surreal state of mind, actually, when you receive that communication. So, don't doubt. And I thought, okay, I spat the dummy, made my demands, the demands were met. These spheres of white light. Now, if they were probes, do they have the ability, because they weren't ours, it's just a sphere of white light, nothing like metal or anything like that, to say, well, it could have been a human spaceship or an extraterrestrial spaceship. It's just a sphere of white light, white energy. But it communicated with me. So I thought, well, a probe? Would a probe telepathically communicate with somebody? We don't know, because we don't know what sort of knowledge, because I don't think it was technology, actually, because what I was receiving, the information I was receiving, it wasn't about technology. It was about creating a better us, about how reality came about through thinking, visualization of thought, a dream state within the mind. And as we're all personalities of that one mind, sharing the one mind and sharing the one dream as personal realities or personal dreamers within the one dream, shared dream. So I thought, well, these whatever they are, like I said, not physical. If it was physical, it would have, I think, made a noise, or when it went over me, I would have felt the rush of air. But there was none of that. So that's when I thought, well, this stuff's coming from somewhere beyond us, beyond our understanding. And I didn't believe it was a god or an angel or anything like that. Like I said, I just had to take it as it is, just a sphere of white light. And we could run in all different directions with our imagination to say it was this or it was that or whatever. It's just a sphere of white light. And so I had to accept. But like I said, it communicated. That sphere of white light communicated with me telepathically. So to me, it was alive, or an essence, or a being, or whatever, an entity. But it communicated with me. And it was there because I spat the dummy. You know, I had a gutful. It was too much for me. I didn't understand. Didn't know where it was coming from. I didn't want to deceive anybody by sharing this information. I had to make sure that it was on the level, it was fair income, that it was worth learning. And I thought, well, if these beings are just white light energy, pure energy, or whether they could transform. And actually they could, because I did see actual beings at different times, and because it was to do with the same stuff that I was receiving, the same information, I figured, well, they could transform from that pure state of energy into a so-called vision. I only saw silhouettes, and some people have called them shadow people. I saw these silhouettes with an elongated head, humanoid, arms and legs. It just looked like a normal being, but just a silhouette of a being, but with an elongated head. And I'd seen them when I was a child as well in my room. And when I did see this at one time, like I said, when they communicate, you're in a semi-dream state, like a lightheaded, off your face, sort of surreal state. And this being in that surreal state, when I saw this silhouette at the window, outside the window actually, and actually our cat went berserk actually when that happened, started jumping up and down on the screen because he was outside, jumped up and down on the screen, the fly screen windows, with a huge window overlooking the lake. And telepathically, this being said, your cat scratched my jacket. My jacket is the same as yours. I thought, I don't really have any jackets. My jacket is the same as yours. And I took it to be, my body is like yours. Vulnerable, physical, actually. But somehow, like I said, they could transform back into pure energy. Possibly for transportation, I don't know, to tell the truth. Like I said, the spheres of white light, these beings, but the ones I saw had elongated heads. So, these spheres of white light, what are they? What are they? Like I said, from my experience, it could communicate telepathically. And from that information, that experience, I don't think it's just a probe, unless they have the ability, their probes, to communicate telepathically, somehow connect with our brain waves and imprint upon our brain. But spoke English. It spoke English. Well, Australian. So, now, to analyse that, as I've spoken before, everything within the dream of mind, which we call life, is symbolic of a design of thought, a way of thinking, a mind state, a mindset. Thoughts. It's visualised thoughts. Everything within the dream is a visualisation of thought. Symbolised something. Symbolised thought. Visualised thoughts. Okay, so what does a sphere of white light symbolise within the dream? Not getting away from the possibility of a god or an angel or anything like that. From what I had learnt, from my new understanding, my new reality, what did it represent within that new reality that I understood as a visualization of thought. Shared dream. Every one of us contributing to that shared dream through our dreams, ambitions, wishes, desires. I want to do this, I want to have that, all that stuff. White light. What does white light represent? Now we have a rainbow. We'll go back before the rainbow. Now, if there's no light, there's just darkness. The darkness of space, which I regard symbolically in the dream of life as pure potential, an infinite source of possible thoughts, nothing in particular, but the source from which everything comes. Just darkness. Space. Call it space. From space, white lights emerge. Stars. And from a star, we receive the white light from that star. It lights up our planetary consciousness, our planet. But like I said, within the mind represents a planetary consciousness. Okay, so that's white light from the sun, star. Lights up our planet when the planet's in the right position. Otherwise, it's just darkness. And these spheres of white light have been seen in the daylight as well. From what I have heard, I haven't seen them in the daylight, only over night time. And as I spoke, when it went over the head, there was no white light anymore, it just disappeared. So apparently they can choose to show themselves, possibly to certain people. I'm not quite sure, to tell the truth. But they can choose not to be seen, because it was seen when it came towards me, and then when it went over my head, it wasn't seen. Just vanished. Wasn't there anymore. Didn't show itself anymore. White light. Okay, white. Now we'll get to the rainbow. Rainbow shows divisions of that white light. Divisions of that white light. Certain frequencies of that pure white light. Stepped down. So not the same frequency that white light would have. Just a lower frequency. A characteristic of that white light. Of that white energy. Could it represent pure energy? White light? Like I said, the rainbow shows divisions of that energy at lower frequencies of that energy, partial frequencies of that major frequency. Okay. And I suppose I did let my imagination run, and I just thought, well, okay, these are beings that are sharing information or leading me in the right direction, and I was accessing this information. But before I accessed that information, I created a whole lot of different frequencies. Didn't know anything about music, about as musical as a banana, but the information I received was to create certain frequencies. So I went out and bought a keyboard synthesizer. Never played anything in my life, actually. Couldn't read music. Then I went through more or less a very intense process of learning enough to play these frequencies on the keyboard synthesizer. And as I went on, I made tapes for people, made CDs, had them produced, personified transients, modulations, they were called, but initially they were personified transients. Transient. So it was, what would I say? Possibly to receive that information or to access that information and to see these beings in that particular state of mind, surreal state of mind, semi-dream state. It appeared that I needed to be conditioned with these frequencies because they had a major effect on me, on my brain. I just went into that, like I said, went into a state of bliss with these frequencies as well. Mandalas did the same thing. I was always drawing them, but these frequencies put me into a state of bliss as well. And I thought, wow, so that's why I made up the tapes, because I wanted everyone else to feel it as the same as I did. I like to share everything. I'm not one of those people that goes, oh, look what I found. You're not getting any. It made me feel so good. I wanted to share it with everyone. So I made up, initially, cassettes. At the time, that was the thing, cassettes. So I made up these cassettes, and then they were made into CDs later on with the technology. And they had a big effect on the people who listened to them. So I thought, okay, excellent. I've shared that stuff. But as I spoke, it was conditioning us, preparing us for something, to access that information, to raise our vibration maybe, because that's what it felt like. I felt like I was vibrating at an incredible frequency, put me into a semi-dream state. And then I could see these beings and see all sorts of stuff and feel all sorts of stuff, become aware of a lot of stuff that I wasn't aware of in my normal state. So I saturated myself with these frequencies. I made up coil mats for the bed, played those tapes through a cassette player and then a CD player, through speaker cables running through these coil mats while I was sleeping. Had incredible lucid, colourful dreams while I was doing that. I would use them on massage table to do my energy healing work. I used them all the time. And as I said, it was putting me into this different state of being, those frequencies. Very light, blissed out, peaceful, without smoking dope. So these things do the same thing. You got off your face for free. But it was different. It was just this blissful state, like making a connection with something beautiful. And I still didn't run down the rabbit hole of religion and gods, because I wanted to know for sure what was going on. I needed to know that for sure what was going on. All I had was this spheres of white light. Now, getting back to that white light, symbolic representation within the dream, what I came up with was, okay, the rainbow shows all the characteristics of that white light, lower frequencies, if you want to say that, divisions, separations of that light. And then I thought, well, a lot of the stories that I've seen, these angels, usually dressed in white, giving off white light, people with this ring around their head of white light, sometimes gold light. All this white. And when I used to go into meditation, I would be surrounded in white light. Surrounded in white light. Beautiful white light. And I just felt really peaceful and incredible, loved. Now, as I spoke before, the hexagon represents love, which is unconditional acceptance. Unconditional acceptance creates programs, reflex responses, or impulses. Okay? Creates programs, reflex responses, or impulses. Unconditional acceptance, love. Unconditional acceptance. Now, when you look at coloured things that have colour, like blood, red, has an iron atom at the centre of this porphyrin structure, atomic structure. The iron atom gives the colour red, the pigment of red. Chlorophyll in plants has a magnesium atom at the centre of the porphyrin that they have, gives the colour green, or different colours of green, shades of green. Now, from what we have become aware of, basic science, certain things absorb certain frequencies of light. Therefore, they appear to be that colour. They resonate with certain frequencies of light. So they don't absorb all of that light. They only absorb certain frequencies, as in red, green, blue, purple, all that sort of stuff. They resonate with that particular frequency. They don't unconditionally accept the white light or all of the characteristics of that white light. It's conditional. They take on board certain frequencies of that white light. And I thought, now I felt this really beautiful feeling in that white light. And the white light represented from angels and all those stories. And they were sort of loving creatures, loving beings, love. Unconditional acceptance. These spheres of white light seem to take on board all of the white light, all of the characteristics of white light. Unconditional acceptance. They unconditionally accepted all of that energy, that pure energy that represented itself as white light. Unconditional acceptance, love. I thought, seems to make a bit of sense. Love. Unconditional acceptance. This white light. So stars are giving off white light. Love. Unconditional acceptance. To nurture life. To create life. Because life, so I've spoken before, a star represents a virtual brain within the dream. A virtual brain mind manufactures virtual realities, visualizes thoughts into dream states, planetary consciousness, life, giving off this white light, creating and nurturing, love. So these spheres of white light And that's probably why there's been no evidence that these spheres of white light have been a threat to us. They do their best to avoid us, most of us, because we're a threat to everything. But at no time has there ever been any idea or inference that it was a threat. So, to me, these beings of love or unconditional acceptance, they apparently, like I said, they don't need technology from what I gathered from the information that I received, that I accessed. I'm not a puppet. I don't become a pawn for anyone or anything, even spheres of white light. I need to do my thing. But through those frequencies, I was prepared in a certain way to raise my own vibration. So I was aware of a lot more than what was normally aware of, than what we were normally aware of. Higher frequencies, possibly dimensions, these beings. I was in this surreal state when I saw them, possibly other dimensional. And to actually connect with those other dimensional beings, you need to be in a certain state of mind, a certain vibration, frequency of thought, because everything's thought. Thought is energy. Unpurposed thought, pure potential. Purpose thought, designs of thought, energy by design. Purpose thought, purposed energy. Intention, energy with intention, with an agenda to fulfill something, to do something. So, spheres of white light. Haven't seen them since then, even though I had wanted to, but it appears that they only made themselves known because I needed that bit of an uplift, a bit of a boost, because I had accepted a lot of stuff at that time, 24 hours a day in this re-education process, and I was putting in the effort, believe me, really putting in the effort to understand all of this stuff, and gradually getting there, but I still got frustrated. I got frustrated with myself because I couldn't understand properly all of this information. How was I going to share this with other people if I didn't understand it? I still get frustrated trying to help people to understand this stuff. Not as much. And when I did understand it, I got frustrated with everybody else because they didn't understand it. And I thought, well, if someone, a normal person like me, I call myself normal, can understand this stuff, run of the mill, mediocre, and surely everyone else can understand it. Didn't seem to work that way. Possibly the ones who were subjected to the frequency tapes that I made up would have a different level of understanding, awareness, because they were being conditioned to access, receive, connect, accept other stuff than what they already knew, take on board and build upon through intelligence, receptive and constructive thought, intellect, takes on board and builds upon concepts, accumulates, and it is adaptive, helps us to evolve, to adapt. Okay. So, with all of these spheres of white light, and I don't tend to worry too much about all these other metallic, like spaceships and all sort of stuff. They could be us making stuff. They could be future us, other humans that were advanced at different times who had these things, and they're still here on a different dimension, a different plane of existence, a different frequency, but they can make themselves known when they feel like it, more or less go beyond our normal understanding of physics. All possibilities. So I don't get bogged down with all that stuff with spaceships. I do recognise that there's too many sightings for them not to be actual, to have some sort of basis, foundation, tangible. I was just focused on those spheres of white light, because if they represent love and unconditional acceptance, we don't really know what those other beings represent. They could be just being similar to us with the same desires and ambitions and greed and all sort of stuff, but they just created better technology. So they're more advanced technological in a technological way. Doesn't mean they were more advanced in any other way, just through technology. These spheres of white light, much more advanced in every way and form. Pure energy, pure white light, transform into physical form when they felt like it, or a visual form. Let's put it that way. We're a dense. We represent density within the dream state, as thick as two bricks. Lower intelligence, low awareness, limited awareness, limited understanding of what everything's all about. Dense. Different levels of density. We're disconnected, separated, divided within the mind, partitions of the mind. So everything, all living things represent those partitions within the mind, separate entities, personal thoughts, personal space, separations, divisions. Everything within the dream is symbolic. It is a visualization of thoughts, a certain way of thinking, visualized into the dream state. Like I said, a lot of people have seen those spheres of white light. More than likely, as with me, I was encouraged, guided to do certain things intuitively, to make up these frequency tapes, to condition myself, to prepare myself for what was coming, for a new learning process, a new understanding. Also, to be able to connect and visualize if these are other dimensional beings. So, what's coming in the future? How long are these beings going to monitor, observe, and guide? They must have got really frustrated with me, because I thought it was freaking stupid. Don't understand this stuff. What's the point of giving it, of accessing this stuff if I can't understand it? What's the point? That's what frustrated me. My own inability to understand frustrated the crap out of me. Not so these days. These days, I spend most of my time trying to help other people understand it. I've learned a fair bit, but I still haven't found a lot of people in this reality, so-called, that are thinking the same stuff, about the same stuff. Sacred geometry seem to have gone down different tangents, detours, sacred, built churches and all that sort of thing, sort of used it or had a level of understanding that wasn't the way it's supposed to be. Gods, supreme beings, aliens. Not saying that aliens don't exist, just other beings, other personalities of the same mind that have evolved probably on a different level than us, more advanced, some maybe not more advanced. Just personalities of the same mind, sharing a dream. So I feel pretty good about my understanding of what these spheres of white light are. Unconditional acceptance. Through unconditional acceptance, they are just pure white energy, not divided, not separated, symbolically within the dream. Symbolically, that's how what they appear to represent within the dream state, to help us to understand, to experience ourselves in different ways, different forms. I'm hoping, well, I'm not just hoping, from what I've learned so far, we're moving in that direction. Some of us. Others are moving in the technology direction, that these other extraterrestrials have possibly gone in. So their physical abilities have probably weakened because they rely more on their technology to do everything. That's just my opinion. From what I've experienced in this reality, I used to do everything just by working it out on paper through normal geometry. I would create all these geometric spheres, wire structures, all sorts of stuff by just working it out through normal geometry on paper. Didn't have computers and all sort of thing. Everything relied on me having a greater understanding of geometry, the language of thought, the language of mind. Through that basic understanding of geometry, I used to create all of these incredibly complex geometric structures. And from what I've seen, and when I went to school, we couldn't just give the answer to a mathematical problem. We had to show the working out of that problem on paper, how we came to that result. That showed the teacher that we understood how to work it out, how to get those answers. Showed an understanding. So we had to work everything out on paper. And all the stuff we learnt with the basics, our times tables, all that sort of stuff, all the basic stuff that we learnt when I was going to school. And then I saw all those kids growing up with calculators. They didn't have to work it out anymore in their head. They didn't have to show the working out. The calculator did it all for them. Computers, all that sort of stuff. So from what I have seen, people have lost those skills. You know, these girls working on checkouts, if they're until broke down. If the technology broke down, they probably wouldn't be able to add anything up because they've lost those basic skills. They've relied too much on technology, and that's happened in a lot of fields. We have lost a lot of skilled tradesmen because now we do everything with machines. Machines do all that stuff for us. We don't need those skills. But we had a greater level of understanding when we had those basic skills, to use those basic skills. And why I said all that is because I think these extraterrestrials went down that same path to an extreme extent. So they're possibly very, very weak physically and maybe mentally. But they've just developed AI, advanced technologies that do the thinking for them. And they use those technologies to create everything. That's just my opinion. I could be wrong. I'm just going on what I have observed from our evolution and extrapolating to a possible understanding of their evolution if they went down that same path, which, from what I've seen, the spheres of white light, or they could have gone down that path and then changed, I don't know. But where they are now matters, not where they've been. And they don't need technology to do anything or to go anywhere. It's just visualization of thoughts. That's what reality is, a visualization of thoughts. Now, if they understand fully that process of visualizing our thoughts into the shared dream, then anything's possible. And as we have seen from the navigation movement of these spheres of white light, it defies our understanding of physics, because we're pretty restricted. We went down all sorts of rabbit holes, and thought manifests. So as we think, we shall become. So our methodologies and our opinions of how everything works, we became governed by, restricted by, very limited understanding of the way everything is, but still use the same visualization of thought. Thought manifests, but we manifested ourselves into a state of dumbness, still using the same principle. Thought manifests. You know, if you think a certain way, that's what's going to visualize itself into the dream state, the shared dream, for us all to become subjected by, limited by, restricted by, governed by. Just my observations compared to what I've learnt, what I've accessed from memory, from the mind. Once you learn that stuff, then you're a dream maker. You make your own dream. In other words, you make your own reality. So it's pretty incredible if we're going down that path of understanding, some of us, what we're going to be capable of as we progress. If we don't all get pissed off and frustrated like me sometimes, if we bear with it and realise that pretty important to know that stuff. Better to create a better me than a better machine to compensate for my own feelings of weakness, restricted understanding. Better to create a better me so I can create a better reality. because machines break down, our bodies break down, our limited visualizations break down, they deteriorate. If we become unconditional acceptance, that pure energy, that white light, and we can manifest ourselves into any form, visual only. We don't need all of that stuff inside of us that breaks down, deteriorates, restricts us. Got to eat, got to drink, got to crap. You know, pissing and farting and carrying on. Just a visual form that doesn't have all of that other garbage of density manifested within our visual form. Anyway, again, I hope someone got something from this. I'm pretty amazed at what I'm learning, what I'm observing, other than the normal stuff. So, and look, again, if you want to know more about this subject, my website, alchemira.com, ALKAMIRR, Advanced Life Kinetics and Memory Intuited Regenerative Research. Go to that website. It's free and it's safe. It's a secure site. But like I said, everything's just there. PDFs, whatever. You can read stuff on there. You can download the PDFs. Geometric structures. Some video and some just two-dimensional pictures of geometric structures that represent certain things. So thank you, and we'll catch up.